Anaheim Ducks are pushing for a playoff spot next year. That's what GM Pat Verbeek told season ticket holders at the second annual Ducks migration event this past Saturday. And by looking at their performances the last 2 games, and the season as a whole, it's hard to see it. So I'm going to give my thoughts on the last 2 games and what Beaker said at the migration event in this video. You know, the Ducks actually made it easy on me to give my thoughts on the last 2 games, because it basically was the same thing both games. Getting down early and taking bad penalties. Just defensive breakdowns after defensive breakdowns, leaving players all alone in the slot, the inability to clear pucks that they have full control of, and still a lack of discipline. The Ducks were outscored 12-3 in the past 2 games. And I guess one of the positives is actually they weren't outshot that badly, a combined 55-50, so only 5 shots. Neither Gibby or Dosty were sharp in their games, but when you're facing slot chances and cross creases every other shot, you can't blame them. There really wasn't anyone who looked good. There was a couple good shifts from some players, but nothing more. Kaloran scored in both and has looked better since coming back from his injury, but he also took stupid penalties, like all the vets do for some reason. And another positive is that Terry and McTavish returned to the lineup, but they still don't look fully healthy. And surprisingly, the player who has looked best in these 2 games is Ryan Strome. He has stepped up since Rico's departure, and it seems that he took his quote from the past week about not letting the games of the season go to waste like last year to heart. However, it seems no one else listened. Look, the fact that we are at game 64 and the same problems are happening over and over again that happened early in the season is not a great look for Cronin. It's no secret the refs have been terrible this year, but the Ducks still take dumb, lazy penalties that have not been fixed. And while injuries have derailed much of this season, there are things Crow has done when it comes to lineup decisions that cannot be overlooked. That being said, as much as it hurts to look at the standings and see we haven't made any real improvement there, the on-ice product does look better than last year. If you didn't watch every painstaking minute of last season and this season, you probably won't understand. Yes, there has been nights where it looks like last season, but most nights it looks like a hockey team on the ice. And you couldn't say that about Eakins last year. Eakins left a culture that we really didn't know how deep it went, and we are still seeing remnants of it. Like, I wish I live-streamed one of Eakins' practices to compare how much better Crow's practices are. Cronin is teaching the stuff they should be doing in a game, and for some reason, they aren't doing it. He talks about accountability, and yet Zegras has been the only one benched this season, so maybe he should try holding other players accountable too. I'm still confused about the double standard for Z. Meanwhile, other players will do the same exact thing and get no retaliation from their coach. And sometimes they actually do worse. So is Cronin going to be the coach when we win a Stanley Cup? No. And I highly doubt he will be here in the next 3 years too. But he will be here next season. Beaker made this very clear during the Ducks migration event. Verbeek started off talking about the trade deadline deals, how he had set prices and got what he wanted from the deals. He was never actively shopping anyone, including Zegras or Vetrano. He let teams come to him, and the teams called on Rico, Sammy, and Bush, so he got what he wanted. Like I said in a previous video, this was going to be a quiet deadline after the Ducks used all 3 of their retention spots in the Rico-Sammy trade. And it was. The Ducks claim yet another left-handed demon who can play on the right side in William Lagenson to give them 8D on the roster, and they only made 1 trade on the day, acquiring Ben Myers from the Avs for a 5th-round pick this year. So we acquired a 5th-round pick for Carrick, and we used the 5th-round pick to acquire his replacement. And he actually will have the same number 2, number 39. Myers won't be doing any fighting though, as he is 5'11" and 194 pounds, but he is younger at 25. He played for Crow last season with the Eagles, so that helps immediately. He's looked okay in his 2 games with the Ducks, but like I said before, no one really looked good in those games. But he has been very good in the face-off circle. Beaker then went on to discuss the team effort in building a winning culture, highlighting the importance of accountability, work ethic, and setting a standard for all players. He said that culture starts with training, specifically focusing on on-off strength and conditioning for young players. He believes that strength is crucial, especially when facing mature and physically strong opponents. I think our last 2 games show us that too. Verbeek acknowledged the challenges of instilling this new culture. He called what they're doing right now a culture shock for players who need time to adapt. And based on the steps the Ducks have taken this year, the Ducks will no longer be sellers. He mentioned he wants to start to add, starting with a top 6 right-handed winger to bring more offense to the lineup. Maybe we'll look at possibilities of who that could be in a future video, along with improving the team's bottom 6 production, because they are basically getting nothing from the bottom 2 lines. Everything Beaker said in theory sounds great, and things can change quickly in the NHL. Just look at the Devils, the previous year, not this one, but making the playoffs next year seems like a stretch, which is why he used the term push for the playoffs, because push to me could be 10 to 15 points outside of the race. And I feel a lot of what he is saying is still dependent on the young kids continuing to take steps, which is something I feel Ducks fans have been saying for years since the last batch of kids. I will say this batch of kids does feel different, however, and while the playoffs next year would be nice, Beaker might have set himself up for disappointment. So Beaker is going to have to show that push in the offseason, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Verbeek also provided updates on current players, including Zelli staying up for the rest of the season, Carlson should be back the 14th versus the Wild after dealing with a concussion, and Trevor Zegras will play wing when he returns, which based on him not having a brace and skating again, should be soon, please. He also mentioned some Ducks prospects in college. Of course, the big one, Cutter, could play in Anaheim this year, depending how BC does in the playoffs. Worst case for us, best case for Cutter, I guess, we could see him play only one game this year. Sam Colangelo and Ian Moore could also be signed, but it's more likely that Sam will over Ian, because Ian might want to return to school for his senior year. Verbeek ended by clarifying that the Ducks are in a transition phase rather than a complete rebuild, aiming to take steps forward and push for a playoff spot. He is happy with his core group, including Zegras. He is done selling and will push for the playoffs. Overall, the Ducks migration event was fun, but this is how I feel about most season ticket holder events. Fantastic ideas, execution lacking. The event started late. We had cold cut lunches at 10 a.m. in the morning, which I guess if you're from Europe, you probably are happy. Then we sat outside on the blacktop with no shade for 2+ hours. Then the players came out after practice for a meet and greet, and the way they handled it was just kind of weird. Players just kind of went everywhere, every which way. Not everyone got to see everyone, but it was still fun. There is obviously lots more Beaker talked about. It's an hour-long talk. I highly recommend you go watch the full video for more insight. The Ducks posted it on their YouTube channel. That's why I didn't live stream it, because I figured they would. I love the honesty Beaker has shown during his tenure. Bob could never. We'll have to wait and see whether he is selling us false hope to sell more tickets, or is Beaker going to get the job done in the offseason. Beaker hasn't lost my faith yet. He has done some things I haven't liked when it comes to RFAs, but if next season he doesn't show massive signs of improvements, he will lose it. By the way, side note kinda, my Ducks season tickets went up by more than $100, so I'm not sure how they can justify that, other than the fact the Samuelis are going to be investing $100 million back into Honda Center over the next 3 years, according to the Ducks president. And hopefully, maybe they plan on improving OA member benefits that have been decreasing every year, which I have some more thoughts on that, but I'll save it for another video because this one's getting a little long. Also, one more thing, I know videos are still inconsistent, and they still might be, but I have been active in our Discord the whole time, so if you want to ask me a question or get my thoughts on something, feel free to contact me there. And honestly, it's just a really fun community in there. We're always joking, having fun with the terrible Ducks season we're having. So come join the fun, especially on game days. We are live chatting the whole time pretty much. So if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, thank you for watching, and go Ducks!
You choose one superpower.
The Superman laser eye where I could do the referees.
No one posts that. No one posts that. We're not trying to get fined.
Don't put that up there, please.